Welcome to Real Men Iowa Radio. We have taken a several month-long hiatus. Is that how you say that? Hiatus?
There you go.
Respite? We haven't done this for a while, and we're back with a new crew. So, yeah, this is kind of fun. We've got about, 8 guys. I think they're going to kind of rotate around and as schedule allows, be a part of this. And hopefully I'll have someone who can figure all this stuff out. So even when I can't make it, we'll still make it happen. And that'll be really cool. So we got Troy over there. Say hi, Troy.
Hey, everybody.
And Alberto.
Hello.
Hey, hey. So we're going to talk a little bit today. Our goal is to fire this thing up and go back to weekly podcasts or vlogs, whatever the current terminology is these days, and talk about some men's issues, which is, in many cases, it's just plain Christian issues. But since we're dudes, we're going to talk it kind of from the male perspective, so you don't have to try to make the girls happy. This is you can be hard, punch the guys in the face virtually, and try to challenge them to strengthen their faith. Today's topic, we're going to talk about. I can't remember how we were going to word it. How to have a fresh spiritual, how to keep your spiritual life fresh. How to keep a vibrant spiritual walk. Because what tends to happen is we leak. I guess is a good way to say it. You go to maybe a conference, you get all excited, or to some type of personal revival, and God shows up, and you're in this great space or place with God. And a month goes by, or sometimes a day goes by, and you just start, you're just not as high as you were. You're kind of floating. Pretty soon you're doing things you wish you weren't doing, and kind of what Paul said, I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do, that whole thing. And, man, I've talked to people recently that are making great Christian people who are just making some terrible mistakes because they've allowed their faith to just kind of float, and they're making poor choices. I don't know how else to say it, and it's affecting their entire family. And so we want to talk to guys about how to keep your spiritual life fresh. It takes effort. Well, I'll just throw that out. What's your first thoughts?
Well, first, I just think about how intentional we have to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can expect just to be okay, or grow. We have to be intentional about it, make some choices, and sometimes they're hard choices. Consistency. I mean, how important is consistency? I mean, we go up and down, but more consistent. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, is just that consistency, and then the intentionality of I've got to intentionally stretch myself. I have to intentionally stay on top of things, stretch myself.
What are you thinking of? What should I consistently do?
Well, I mean, we can always go back to, hey, we should be in the Word, we should be, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I do try and be consistent with that. I think that over the years, there's some good habits that have taken place in my life. But again, I'm up and down just like everybody else, or most everybody else, I think, with that sort of thing. For me, I mean, the real key for me is really putting myself out there, stretching. I think that, to me, that's the key, is stretching myself. I know I've said that a couple times, but it's one of those things where I can just get so complacent or so in a routine, and then it gets dry, and it gets, so for me, personally, it just takes, I don't like to stretch physically. I mean, I hate it.
Right.
I mean, I was always in that sports and things like that, and that was the worst part of practice, was stretching.
Ya.
I mean,
I am not elastic.
Yeah. But that spiritual stretching, I mean, if we don't do it, I mean, it's.
So how do you spiritually stretch? I mean, what does that mean? Do you try new things, or?
Yeah. I mean, I think John Maxwell calls it the law of the rubber band.
Oh.
So what good's a rubber band if it's not being stretched, right? It doesn't do anything. So you have to continually stretch yourself. And for me, that is trying new things, putting myself out there, doing things that take God. not on my own, that sort
Uh-huh.
of thing. And if I'm not doing it, the interesting thing is I find that God does it.
He'll
I
find a
mean,
way to.
like
Right.
life stretches you, right?
I
So
did something a few years ago that I've been an NIV Bible translation guy like since college, right?
okay, yeah,
And a few years ago, I switched to ESV,
right,
and part of the reason I did that was it's difficult to read. I mean, not like challenging. Like I can read the
mm-hmm,
King James, and I'm old enough I should know better, but I still don't have no clue what I read. I just like I don't
right,
speak that way. ESV it just words it differently enough that I don't get into auto mode of I've read the Bible enough times that I can read any verse and I've already kind of tuned it out because I already know what it says.
mm-hmm,
But when I went to ESV, I would read it and like, wait a minute, that's not the right word. And I'd have to stop and think again.
mm-hmm,
And I've liked that because I mean, it's sometimes I'm an awkward reader because I'm still halfway. This has been a few years now. I still am reading it halfway in NIV and auto, but that's not what the word is. And I have to pause a second and it kind of stumble around. So something as simple as
yeah,
that has been a stretch, but it's been refreshing because I have to think about what it says again.
right.
I mean, I don't know if that's really what you're thinking, but that's just a simple little thing I
Yeah, I
did, you
mean,
know?
yeah, I mean, all sorts of things like that. And maybe we think too big sometimes, even the little things
Yeah.
in life. I we just moved, and man alive, transition, crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So, um, I guess you kind of forget if you don't move. I mean, it's been 12 years
Mm-hmm.
um, since the last time we moved, and it's hard. I mean, there's so many choices and decisions, and you got to find new this, new that. Um,
Oh, everything.
it just
Yeah.
really stretches. I mean, in a lot of ways, and so um, uh, most of us, if we get in a rut, we're doing the same thing, whether that's even in the translation, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The
just
same prayer
yep,
patterns, the same study patterns. Sometimes I think
yeah,
it's good just to shake things up, just shake it up.
yep.
So,
I'm that way,
mhm.
and so maybe some people are not, um, but I'm that way. I have to change things up every once in a while. It's just kind of my personality or something.
Yeah, yeah, I'm that way. If I go the same way to work every day, I'll take a left instead of a right, just be different, even though it takes longer. Now, I can't say that here because I live like 3 blocks from here. But when I go to the same place all the time, I will switch things up because I get bored, and I guess I do spiritually. That's why, you know.
Yeah. For me, it's man, I've got to do something every once in a while that I can't do myself. You get
Hmm.
pretty self sufficient even in your
Hmm.
faith, especially if you've been a Christian for quite a while,
Yeah.
and before you know it, you're an autopilot and you're doing it instead of trusting God and leaning on Him for the strength. The strength's coming all from yourself, At
Yeah.
least that's the way I am. So
Right.
I've got to force myself to do things that scare me to death, or uh, and I'm not talking about jumping off a building. I'm talking about like going up and talking to that person or um, teaching this class or doing trying that mission field experience.
Right.
Um, working with teenagers that I'd never worked with before, different cultures, different. I really personally, I for my faith, I need that kind of stuff because I've been a Christian a long time.
Hmm. You're
Um,
really old.
it's been a while. It's been a while.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
um, so for me, that's what it takes. I don't. Is that
And like for me, finding new serve, even at church, I started helping with worship,
there? You
pushing
go.
myself, and then at first I was the guy that guitar in the back, and then later
Yeah.
on started singing and then leading worship,
Yeah.
and then even recently they asked me to help out at retreats and finding new ways to serve and finding other places also. I think that's a good way to
Yeah.
maturing and growing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's true. I just started playing bass
Yeah.
because kind of same thing is like when I was in my 30s, I was having trouble finding an acoustic guitar player for some reason. I had the other pieces of the band, but I couldn't. That's usually the easiest to find. Everybody plays guitar, but I
Right.
couldn't find anybody. So I thought, well, shoot, I'll just learn. So I bought a guitar and I learned to play guitar, and it's kind of the same thing. Pretty soon I'm leading worship and stuff with the guitar, and then here at Pathway, we every once in a while there's rotation of things. People move, whatever things happen, and so they've had me play keyboard once in a while. Like I am not a keyboard. I don't know how to play piano. I'd have no clue. But I do like the pads. Just a little background, thing. And I've done that several weeks, which is hilarious because I have to write an F on the, I know, because I'd have to, otherwise I'd have to sit and count the keys, and then the same with the bass. I'm just now learning bass. I have no clue how to play bass, but I played it like 5 times now, and so I bought one yesterday because I want to learn it. I want to learn it. I want to be able to sit back and just sit and close my eyes and sit in my office and play bass, and that's that. Yeah, that's cool and fun and kind of stirs things up in you. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we're such creatures of comfort,
Yeah.
I mean, and that goes all the way through our faith. I mean, we're gonna pick and choose what's comfortable to us.
So yeah, because what happens when you get stagnant? What do you do?
Oh. What do I do?
Anybody? I mean, like,
Yeah.
in general, what do we do as people when we get stagnant in our faith? I think of King David. Right?
Yeah.
There's a guy who, on one hand, will pick up stones and go after a giant because how dare you assault the
Right.
the King of Kings? The God. This is my God you're talking about. And then another day he's going, hey, look at that lady on the roof there. I think I'll take care of her husband and have my way with her.
Right.
Those are. I mean, what he got complacent somewhere.
Yeah.
And then he turned things around and wrote Psalms. I think that's us. We'll do dumb things when we're not engaged.
Well, I think it's that old frog in the pot deal, you know, an old youth group thing, where the frog just gets used to the heat, just
keep turning it up.
Just keep turning it up before you know it, you can't jump out, and I think that does happen for sure. It happens. I know it happens in my life.
Did you ever do that in the youth group? You ever?
No, I never did any of that.
You didn't ever cook a frog. I'm just asking.
No, I wouldn't do anything like that.
Did you want to?
yeah. Little live demonstration.
You were afraid of the phone calls.
Little frog soup. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
No. I mean, I think it's natural for us to get complacent. We seek comfort.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's much different in. We'll choose methods. We'll choose things that, even in our faith, that are more comfortable. Whether be using our talents and gifts and abilities, and stretching ourselves. So we need God's strength. I think that's the thing. Is what do I do that I need God's strength for? I mean, you really think about it, or am I just too scared to do something? I mean, and part of it is I'm just flat out scared.
Right.
I mean.
How many people that their real goal is just to make it through? That's not a very lofty goal. They probably wouldn't word it that way, but that's really all they're doing.
Yeah.
It's Friday to Friday or whatever day, pick your day. Sunday happens, they do that. And, churches do the same thing. I've always told churches, once in a while you got to do something. You got to be so far out on the limb. God doesn't hold you up. The thing's gonna fall. You're gonna fall.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't live there every day, but once in a while you got to stretch yourself. I think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, hey, haven't you seen that? I mean, as you've been a minister for a number of years, I know you in your own church. I'm sure that's probably why you try a lot of different things.
Sure.
We as a group, we're not. We're individual, but we're all. I mean, together we struggle with a lot of the same things when it comes to complacency and comfort and all that. So, churches need projects, right? They need to try things that they need God's strength for. They can't do it themselves, and that's where it gets exciting, right? That's when the freshness comes. I feel like, in my own life, is when I recognize that wasn't me, it was God. That's when your relationship with him really takes off, I think. or at least in my life.
No,
There's,
I
there's
agree.
seasons for sure.
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um,
So I saw this article. Kind of funny. It's in ways to detoxify your soul right now. Actually, like a summary of a book by Craig Groeschel. So it's not
yeah.
really somebody else wrote it about what he wrote. So
Mhm.
we're going to talk about what someone else wrote about what somebody else wrote. and so this,
Does it tell the book?
just
What?
some point
Oh, that's
okay,
right.
application of Craig Groeschel's soul detox,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
clean living in a contaminated world. 2012. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's been around. So here they give 10 ways to detox. Realize that everything counts. Absolutely everything you allow into your mind and life has an impact on how you grow or don't grow spiritually. Agree, disagree?
Yeah. Read it again.
Everything counts. Absolutely everything you allow into your mind and life has an impact on how you grow or don't grow spiritually. The little choices you make every day add up to significant effect on your soul. So take your everyday decisions.
Yeah. I mean, I agree for sure.
Do I pause and pray by that Bible verse
Hmm.
in the door? Whatever.
Yeah.
Those are all little tiny choices.
Yep.
Do I pause and think, how would God want me to act in this?
I think that's what I've tried to get better at too. Is, I mean, maybe you have been around people. Maybe you're this way too. But they wake up like at 4 a.m. and they pray for 2 hours and then they do Bible study. And I know that people actually do things like that. But for me, that's been a struggle. I think and I don't think that's uncommon. But what I've tried to do is to work him into my life all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not just praying and getting my job done. It's more like living a life of prayer, living a life with him.
Right.
So all through the day, even when I'm at my job, things like that when anything comes up, I'm chatting with him while I'm doing it.
I think that's what Paul talks about when praying continually. I think,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, I think that's more valuable to me than actually. And I'm not saying, hey, you don't do it in the morning. I'm not saying that.
Right.
It's great to start your day off. I still try and do that. But to me, it's almost more important. I mean, I don't know if it's more important. It's just as important that I'm remembering him all through the day.
Oh yeah.
And like you said, those little choices throughout the day. Like sometimes, like I'm at lunch and it's like, I can watch a YouTube video or I can read the Bible or do something else. And it's
Right.
those. I go home, it's like, I can my favorite TV show, or I can do just those very small choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they do make it.
And you should be able to do both. Yeah, it's not like I feel guilty every time, like, oh no, I watched that TV. I have a favorite TV show. Well, okay, but just don't neglect one for the other. Yeah.
And I think I grew up with great men of faith around me, so then I tended to think, I can't be like that. So then I was like, then that's bad.
It's intimidating.
Yeah, I'll never live up to that kind of a thing. So then I think that's maybe why I'm a little more maybe aware through the day.
Yeah.
Those little decisions, things like that talking about, Alberto. How important those are.
I like that because I'm also the guy who I wake up at 4:00. I'll think, I'm supposed to pray for someone, so I'll pray for like 30 seconds. I think, that's about all I got, and then I'm playing Walking Dead on my iPad and watching the news and trying to fall back asleep. But and then I think, oh man, I'm a spiritual jerk. But I pray all the time. I'm there's a consciousness of prayer. I'm all continually seeking God's will. So I haven't failed. But maybe once in a while that would.
Well, don't you think people do though? They do think that I can't do this. I just it's like reading. I'm gonna read the New Testament. I'm gonna read the whole thing, start in Matthew, and they read Matthew 1. Like, oh my goodness, I fall asleep.
I can't pronounce those.
I can't read the New Testament. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
Well, it's not that, you get kind of intimidated. You get kind of,
Yeah.
and then, Satan starts talking to you. He starts putting things in your head like, oh, you're just a loser. Who are you to think you could, be a leader? Or all
Yeah.
those sort of things that
Yeah.
he does.
You're not
And-
that good.
Yeah.
You know what
So,
people think?
yeah, just give up. Just give up on this spiritual freshness thing, this, growing in him thing.
Well, here's number 2. All right.
Mhm.
Identify the lies that have deceived you and replace them with truth.
Yeah.
Examine your life for toxic behaviors that harms your spiritual effectiveness, distracts you from God's purposes, your emotions, feelings that lead you away from God, assumptions, media you can. So we kind of talked about this. People you spend time with. Ask God to give you the wisdom you need to discern which of all those are toxic.
Yeah.
Probably are some things that are toxic. Maybe the favorite show is toxic. Your second favorite show should jump up.
That reminds me of that Eugene Peterson stuff from years ago. That his thought was that which we agree with, that scripture is the truth, and so if we have lies around us, the only way to replace it is with the truth.
Sure.
So getting that scripture into your life and really keeping that truth in front of you, replacing those lies. We have to replace those lies that society gives us.
There's so much. I mean, we're bombarded, whether it be the messages in the modern music, the news. The news is just plain toxic. People hate each other now. You can't even just have an objective like, hey, what's going on? It's like, this is why this person's a rat fink, and if it wasn't him, it was the other one who's a rat fink, and then you start getting emotionally like, yeah, they are a rat fink, and there's Jesus saying, yeah, but I died for him. Can we get this thing going again? Yeah, but the chicken sandwich, yeah, we can't go there anymore. It's like, no, maybe there's bigger things in life. I mean, it can drive you insane. All right, number 3, clean up your thoughts. Spiritual battles are ultimately either won or lost in the mind. It's crucial to pay attention what thoughts you focus on. Talks about thoughts. Philippians, what is pure, what is right. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think of what Jesus was talking, with the spiritual leaders of his day, what made them unclean. And they were all about what you ate, right? And what you touched and Jesus was like, no, it's all about the heart, it's all what goes in there, and what comes out from it. That's what kind of makes me think of when it talks about that detox of the heart. I mean, everything we see, everything we hear, everything we do, every little thing, as he says there in that list, every little thing, it makes a difference. It does. So
it kind of makes me think, when you go on a fast, you don't eat in days, all this detox that happens, like tongue gets gross, a bad breath, and you're just kind of stinky, and it's like that's just all the junk coming out of you. That's just physically the food we eat. I wonder, maybe it is. I've never really thought about this. Maybe that once in a while you should take a mental detox, turn literally everything off for a couple days or a day once in a while, and just not listen.
I mean, don't you think that? I mean, fasting from media or fasting from whatever it is a discipline for us. I mean, our favorite TV show, replacing it with some time, pausing, whatever it is. I mean, it could be food. I mean, that could be a part of it for sure. How important I mean, we like to blame it on the younger generation, but it's not. It's everybody.
Oh no, it's mostly younger
Yeah.
people.
Right, Alberto?
Yeah.
What?
definitely.
What? Wait a minute. You wondered why we called you here today. Well, I'm really going to think about this because that's something that can really fresh my spiritual media fast. I will back off on like news, like I said,
Mhm.
periodically. I'll just take a few days and nothing's changed. I'll turn it back on. It's the same people yelling at the same people. It's just a different issue now.
Right.
And
What-
I like that idea.
What is it? What is it? What is it? Scripture says that that we shouldn't be mastered by anything,
Right.
you know. And so it makes me think. I mean, what is my master's? You know, what is my temptation that for me it's probably different than other people. I mean, we all have our own whatever it is. It's not necessarily bad things. I mean,
Right. Right.
like I really love sports, you know,
Mhm.
but how many times do I have to listen to this talk show or that talk show, that sports show, or watch the 110 NBA games that are on,
Yeah.
or
Or the replay of the dude ripping the dude's helmet off.
right.
And, you know.
Exactly.
I got to see that again.
It's not just watching it, it's listening to 50 people talk about it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that could be, you know, I'd be careful that those things aren't mastering me without
Yeah.
me even recognizing it. Right?
It's just a nice just time, and I think in some retreats that I've
Yeah.
gone to, they always do a lot of time to do silence,
Mm-hmm.
and so where you go off and then you just silence and just reading or just praying or just God. I think those have been some of my favorite times of those. I just get to do that because I feel like I don't do that a lot of times. There's a lot of noise,
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
around you, just a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, and so it's just I sometimes forget to do.
Yeah.
I think it's good to do that, everyone.
There you go. That's
Awesome.
We're gonna revive the world here.
And that takes practice, or it's not always natural to us.
Mhm.
I know, like
It's a
It's-
discipline.
yeah, like I know when I've been able to do that is so valuable, but the first thing that happens is I have to like force myself almost to do it. You know,
Yeah.
it's so unnatural. It's like you sit down and I'm like, wait, I'm just gonna listen to God. I'm just gonna sit here, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about this and that, and I've got to do this and da, 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 and you know it's not easy. But once you get through that, it's like a breakthrough. You know, like you need to just sit here and pause. You know, let things catch up. You know, let God catch up. Let my mind catch up with God. I mean, it's like,
Exactly.
we
do 24/7 prayer rooms once a month, and last one we did for whatever reason, weren't able. They had vacations, whatever. It was just an
Mhm.
odd time, and I filled in a lot of space. Where you pray for an hour at a time, and it's you know, spent a lot of time on that particular one. Just sometimes I'll turn music up and worship. Sometimes I'll pray. You know, whatever different things. There was a lot of time I just sat in the chair. I just and it was so peaceful. I left thinking I wasn't even irritated that I had to fill up. You know, sometimes I'm like, oh come on, people, you know, and it was like no, it was just like it was so cool. It was just it was a good time. Yeah. Okay, number 4 is choose positive words and avoid. Does that include social media?
Sure, anywhere you're using words, right?
I guess so.
I mean, choosing a positive life stance is it can be so difficult now. I'm generally a very positive person, but I'd be lying if I'd said it's easy all the time, because how much negativity there is, you know,
Mm-hmm.
out there. And I'm not just talking about in the world. I'm talking about in church or everything, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, not maybe in the service, but just like we struggle with it in the church, you know, too. It's not It's not just the world. I mean, it's hard to remain positive.
I've seen really people I really respect, really godly spiritual people who can get so caught in this of social media. People, throwing mud back and forth at people. Even like the Chick-fil-A
Hmm.
thing going. Everybody's like going back and forth, and it's okay to have an opinion,
Oh yeah.
but you can become negative on it,
Is this
affecting you
worth it?
spiritually. Yeah, yeah. It is pulling you into a pit. And I know there's big things at stake, and it's big stuff that people, but still you got to be positive, and you've got to use discipline,
Yeah.
positive, and then do something about the big.
Yeah.
Yell about it.
Oh, I was a pastor for a lot of years, and then went into the workforce. Yeah, I guess you'd say into the education world.
Got a real job? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying it that way. I'm just saying it was different,
Right.
Um, and Alberto, I know you work downtown, and there's a lot of good in that. I mean, in really being around folks that don't know the Lord, that don't know Jesus, that don't have a relationship with Him, and you begin to realize, people need God everywhere, and there's a lot of people that just because they don't know God doesn't mean that they're evil all the time,
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, they have different opinions maybe than I do. They have different beliefs, but I can be friends with them, and they can know that I love God, and I want them to know that God loves them, and that doesn't mean I'm compromising the truth.
Right.
But to give the truth and love, it's a real nuance, I think. I mean, if all I'm doing is giving them the truth, they're not ready to hear it, or it's done in a tone of anger, or of being judgmental, or however you want to say it. They're not. Only thing I'm going to do is make them mad. I mean, what good is that? So, but at the same time, if all I'm doing is just loving them and never giving the truth, what good is that too? I mean, it's got to be that whole truth and love thing together. And you know what? I don't know that I'm always that good at that. I don't know the church is always that good at that either.
Right.
It's really, really difficult.
Yeah, we tend to either focus on love or truth.
Yeah, we swing one way or another.
Yeah.
Back and forth.
Have a good balance.
I was at a church not long ago, and the summer, and they were preaching on hot topics, and they weren't weak. I mean, they were good messages, right? And when the topic of homosexuality came up, the minister that was speaking on it, awesome job. And he said, I decided I wasn't going to speak on this until I actually knew some people that had a different belief than I did. I started becoming friends with people that were homosexual, and now I feel like I can be heard. I have some credibility. I just so admire that.
Yeah.
I just think
yeah.
that's awesome. Speaking from a place more of understanding, or trying to understand, or of love, but not backing away from the truth.
Right.
But being able to have real conversation, and maybe even disagreeing.
I think that's an issue that the church has really had to wrestle with the last 20 years. Because 20 years ago, you just shouted out, "Stop it," and it was like, "Yeah, we're all yeah," and now we're in a different place societally, where we have to I think we got to be more careful how we communicate. We often do communicate anger and
Right.
hatred. That's not what we mean.
No, and
But that's what we're saying.
back, even back to what our topic was, is spiritual freshness, spiritual growth. We'd be lying to ourselves if we think that doesn't affect our personal growth with God. Our that negativity that comes out, always being the one, it does. It can affect us. It can change us. It can make us. It gives us a lot of negativity, and then it can affect our relationship with God.
And we forget the whole reason the game was to salvation.
Right.
And we're just angry at people.
Yeah, we just get angry.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, we missed the point. We missed it. And that's changing. I mean, it really is, I think. But it took a few years of really reviving their souls, I think. And it's freshly.
Again, I think that's where we need the Holy Spirit, right? We need God to help us. How do I give the truth with love? How do I not be weak, and how do I be weak enough to show my frailty? It's it's difficult. I mean, I think that we need the Holy Spirit to give us those promptings, right? To know, because I've failed so many times.
Right, number 5 says, uncover your hidden sins. No sins ever hidden from God, so find that person. Everybody needs people in their life that can be accountable to, and anything. Believer in that. Not necessarily, you don't throw it on the airwaves, but have in your life you can say pornography, work, or whatever it is. You may not tell your mom that you will have your buddy. You can. Number 6, excuse me. Dig up bitter root from your soul. I talked about that hair. I think it's, you allow bitterness to take root in your soul. It poisons you, blocks you from experiencing. Someone's harmed you, harmed by society, whatever. I don't like the on.
And I read a book that said that you need a pain file. And that's interesting. And what he meant by that was you need to, and I think I was always part, if it was pain, I wanted to move away from it, and okay, maybe I need to confess, acknowledge it, but I'm moving on, and in some ways that's really good. But he was talking about more acknowledging the pain, the resentment, the anger, right? And then actually recognizing it and learning from it, growing from it. And to do that, you've got to write it down. You've got to talk about it with somebody. You've got to deal with it, and then you can move on. I think I'd rather not deal with it. I think I'd rather just move on, right?
Yeah, kind of bury it.
And then it comes back, things like that. So he talked about it in the way of a pain file. Yeah, you have files. Not that you file it away, you actually recognize it, right? You write it down and that sort of thing. I was like, that's an interesting way of putting it. I've never thought of it in that perspective.
Because we all deal with stuff. Somebody somewhere along the line, everybody gets hurt by something. Living in a
true that,
fallen world. I mean, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're just, it's just what it is.
Yep.
A couple years time, about dates, I guess. A few years ago, well, let's go back even further. When I was in 6th grade, my dad left my mom. He had an affair with someone at work, and married her, and so I was really raised by a single mom there going forward. And so I've never, I figured that's his sin. I didn't let it worry me or anything, but it affects you. And he died several years later. Had cancer, and I remember going, but things were restored. He actually became a Christian, and at that time it was really great.
Wow.
Great story.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, and told me before he passed away that good chunk of money he had set aside. Wife passed away, that would be good for me. So I always, in the back of my head, that's okay. That's part of my retirement plan. I just knew it was coming, like a significant amount of money, right? And she passed away. I don't know. And one of the not trust people who
Oh, executor.
executors, thank you.
Yeah.
And I show up, and she had 3 kids, and he had 3 kids.
Uh-huh.
I mean, oh, you're not an executor anymore. Really? Changed it like within. She probably lived another 15, 20 years after he died. But like within a couple of years of him dying, she kicked us out of the will, gave it all to her kid. Never told us that, and so we were, friendly to visit cards and blah blah blah. Stole a few $100,000 from me, and first thing I had to deal with is I will not let this cannot become bitterness, because could easily become. First I just got to forgive. It's like, okay, that's remember God. What can I do? Whatever. 100 years from now, I won't really care. I'll have my own mansion, and it won't matter. But it does affect my family and those after me. But it is quite a process to do the pain file thing, to force yourself to say, no, Christ died for you. You offended him more than she. The whole thing, you owe it him, family, not let this. And so for the most part, it's gone off my life. But every once in a while, 2 weeks late on my house payment, I had this house payment paid off. It'll come up. And I don't think that's bitterness. It's just, I have to then put it back where it belongs. Like, okay, acknowledge it. Yep, bummer, life, go on. So yeah, stuff happens, and you can't, life's too short.
Right.
But it can be a process. There's people who've had much worse things happen to them. I have friends in Africa now that are just being abused by the government. Horrific. Wouldn't trade a second with. Anyway.
I wrote this down, Dan, because I thought it was so good. It's good management of bad experiences leads to.
Okay. Yeah.
And I thought, because we all have bad experiences, they're all different, and I've got my fair share. And to be honest with you, I probably have less than a lot of people. I'm pretty blessed and fortunate, but they're coming, or I've had a few. So how am I going to deal with them, right? And it's interesting how really a lot of those things I grow. Once I get through them, I recognize I grow more through those than I did all those other great experiences that I had, So, and again, they do come back every once in a while.
Sure.
I guess they're just more opportunities for growth, right?
Right.
But I see people that are in great pain or have just these horrendous things happen to them. And it's interesting. Some people they just are pillars, right? They just, wow. They're so strong, and they just, I'm sure they have their weak points, but they grow so much. And other people, it just decimates, So what was the difference, How they handled it or how they grew from it, and being prepared, I suppose, a little bit for those things. But I want to be like that,
Yeah.
I want to learn and grow from the bad things that happen to me, because they do happen.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
That's called life, right?
Yep. It's inevitable, right? It's gonna happen. So that's what I'm trying to be.
Love it. Number 7, get rid of envy. Envying people who have what you. And again, envying have what you want, don't have. Envying people who have what you want but don't have will only you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
I'm emphasizing the sentence wrong.
Yeah.
So stop comparing yourself like to people who can read well, and your life with other people. Anyway, don't envy. Yeah, that can knock you down. That can consume you.
Yeah. Sure.
Number 8, express anger productively rather than destructively. Yeah. Can argue with that.
How about the idea of being angry with God, right?
Uh-huh.
Or wrestling with God. Does that play in there, you think?
So, I'm
You guys ever been angry at God? I think I have. I think I've had seasons of my life, usually during those tough times, Yeah.
we lost a couple of babies. There were times I
Frustrated
but
or
I was like,
disappointed.
really? At this point, yeah,
Yeah.
what would be the word? I guess I was careful to check myself, like, okay, Job, stand up there like
Right.
a man, my friend.
Right.
So I usually didn't let myself get processed.
Yep. I've been stuck in Judges, which is weird,
Oh, I
but
love judges.
been stuck in Judges for a while, and one of the people that really stands out to me is Gideon. And so Judges 6 is where I'm thinking of now, where the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, and he was threshing, in that wine press, and I think he was kind of upset with God because the prophet was telling him, you guys need to repent and all that. And I don't know if Gideon felt like he had repented and all of that, but when the angel of the Lord came to him, he approached him as mighty warrior. And one of the versions I was reading a few weeks ago said that Gideon said, "Pardon me." I thought that was awesome. I was like, that is such an awesome translation. When I read the NIV, it wasn't like that. It was, I can't remember what the phrase was, but it was much more loose or much more weaker. And this version said that Gideon said, "Pardon me," because he didn't feel like a warrior.
Yeah.
He felt anything. What he say? I'm from the weakest clan of all of Israel, or whatever, and you're picking me. I'm
a farm boy over here.
And I think he was upset with God, because I think he felt like God had kind of left him, or at least wasn't speaking to him much. And so it took him a while. And it's interesting that angel was very patient with him. If you remember, he was like, hang on here, let me go get some food, and I want you to prove that you are, who you're saying you are. And I think there's a lot of guys out there like that, I think they're just not quite sure if God is out there, and if he is, they don't sense him in his life as much, and so it's not like they're hearing audible voices, and so there's like I think they're afraid almost to test God or to be upset with God.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be upset with him if something like that's happened, and I don't think God's afraid of that. He didn't seem to be afraid of that with Gideon, right?
He knows.
And he was so patient with him. He showed him, right? And then later, he's like, "No, you are a mighty warrior. Give me, call all the men together. Let's do this battle thing." And he does it again. He's like, "Well, okay, I just want to be sure here, right? I want to be sure that you're really who you say you are, and that we're gonna be able to defeat the Midianites and all that. Can you just like take the fleece and like?" I'm thinking, okay, one time's good.
Yeah.
No, what is it? 3 times? Different ways.
Yeah.
And God didn't. He didn't like, okay, forget you, at all. He was very patient. I think that, we as men need to know that God can take our anger. He can take our whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
And challenge God. Ask him. I think that's important. Yeah.
I'm preaching through Malachi right now. reading for this Sunday, Malachi 2:17, the last verse of Malachi 2, and the first few, chapter 3, and it's a series of conversations, and this one, God says, here's the deal. He said, you're wearing me out, people. Your words, you're wearing. You're making me weird.
Right.
He said, you're number one. You're things that are good. You're calling evil. And the things that are evil, you're saying are good, and you're saying I delight in what's evil. No, that's screwed up.
Right.
And secondly, because I had. Secondly, they're asking, where is the God of justice? They're looking around saying, now, wait a minute, how come there are poor people? How come, come on, God, where were you when all these bad things are happening? And it's like, well, bad things are happening because you're calling evil good and good evil. I mean, because you are not following the plan I gave you. So, of course, bad things happen. Don't blame me. Where was God at 9/11? Where was God at this or that? It's like, well, evil is in the world. So it's not surprising when evil happens. And so you might be hurt a little bit. I mean, things happen in your life, and I would challenge you not to weary God with your words of anger toward him. Process that. Let him, like you say, he's not going to be surprised. You can be honest with him, and then let it go. Don't hang on to that.
Right.
Speak your mind and then go. Get it. And that can be a cleansing thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, if you hang on to that anger, that's not going to do any good, right? So,
right.
I mean, with God at all, or resentment, or all those feelings that you had. I think as men, we tend not to share our feelings.
Yeah.
And I think we do that with God a lot of
Right.
times.
Yeah. Go by the book.
Yep. So I think that can be part of that cleansing process, that detox, is being honest with our feelings. And that's with other men, but with God too.
Yeah.
And that may be to other men, so that they can help you work through that and process that. I think we all get times in our lives where we have different feelings. And so,
sure. Sometimes we don't know what they are. We're trying to figure them out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Number 9, break free of fear. Whenever you feel afraid, remind yourself that fear never comes from God.
I don't know. Say that one again.
break free of fear. Whenever you feel afraid, remind yourself it never comes from God. There's more. It comes from evil. God gives you a spirit of power, love, not fear. Rather than placing your faith in the what-ifs of life and feeling afraid of what you may or may not happen, place your faith in God, who's in charge of your and wants what's best for you. Specific, persistent fears in your life, they reveal the areas in which you're trusting God the least.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. There was even more, and I thought, okay. I get that, though. If you're consistently fearful of a particular thing, you're trusting is a symptom that you're trusting God the least in.
Sure.
If I'm always afraid I'm not going to eat, silly example for us, that means I'm not trusting God's going to supply, or I'm not going to pay my bills, or I'm going to get fired, or whatever the thing. Car is going to break down. Well, all that could happen, but I'm knowing that I don't believe God will provide, even if that does happen.
I don't know. I think that fear is a natural feeling. I think if we dwell on the fear and don't get over the fear, if we don't trust God, I get what he's saying.
I don't think he's saying you can't ever fear or be afraid of something or be concerned or
I think there's probably a lot of, and in Scripture, women included, that were afraid, but they did it anyway. With God as their strength. In my weakness, you're made strong, right?
Yeah.
So I think to say that fear is. Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
You have to think through that a little bit. Is fear always?
I think fear.
Right.
I mean,
That
kind of.
I heard once say that sometimes you just have to jump and let the wings form as you fall. Um, and I think there is some truth to that. God, you know, yeah, that you're gonna be afraid. I mean, there's gonna be life that are so overwhelming and big that you're gonna be afraid. But if you let that paralyze you, right, and then you don't lean into God and let Him take it, yeah,
Bad decision. You have that fear, and then you, oh no, I had to now myself or things like that. And you
yeah.
trust God. Like your bad decision.
It's interesting. They say there's like a 7-second rule, right, or 9 second or something like that. That if you don't do something in the first 9 seconds or determine you're gonna do it, that you won't,
Huh.
because we're afraid. We're so afraid of everything. Um, so I get what he's saying. He's saying fear's a lack of faith. That's what he's alluding to, isn't it? Fear's a lack of faith.
Yeah, the closer you come to God, the less you'll struggle.
Hmm.
We'll leave that in the processing.
I'm not
bin.
sure because I think that it'll be in areas, right, where I trust Him, the fear subsides. But there's always going to be areas, I think, where there's always areas of growth in my life, right? There's always areas where I need to trust Him more. So that means that I'm gonna have to go through that process all over again. I'm gonna be afraid,
Right.
and then I have to turn that over to Him, right? Um, yeah, that's a good one to think on. I like that. I like that. That's good.
You were stretching you.
Yeah, that's good.
Revival
That's
right
good.
here.
I like it.
All right, the last one, number 10. Get rid of toxic influences on your life. Break free of materialism. Look to God instead of money or possessions, wherever happiness. Yeah, if you can. Yeah. Ask yourself, am I being influenced by sin? Stop consuming. Recognize this toxic. Kind of covered this already.
Yeah. You want to say that twice because it's so strong.
Yeah. No, really. Have
Yeah.
you gotten rid of it yet?
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
had a few minutes. All right. Any final thoughts? What do you do? We want to keep people fresh, keep spiritual lives going forward, not plateauing, not going into a valley, but forward climbing. What's your last word? Alberto. that's in Canada, right? Alberta.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
Somewhere far away.
I do have a Mike Damascus. I call him Damascus all the time, and it's like, I'm not a city.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like what I thought was what helped me serving part. I find new ways to expand on. I serve. Been doing. I've been serving in this capacity, but I can do it. I don't know. Just I think serving is something I enjoy, and I feel like that keeps closer to God.
Yeah.
Keeps me.
What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, Alberto. I'm that way as well. I feel like I'm the closest to Jesus when I'm serving like Him. There's something special about it. I can always put my fingers on. I think a lot of times if I'm dry, or if I'm needing refreshing, that seems to do is serving in a different way, or find someplace new to serve, or someone on my radar needs to be on my. It just seems to make it fresh again. Because I think I have to lean on Him because I think it's beyond me. I think that's that's why it affects me strongly.
That's what me too. I like all these things we talked about from this little article here, and on top of all that, in scripture reading, prayer, and being creative and making things up, is I have to once in a while. I just have to. Went to the ICOM, International Conference of Missions. That was just fun. It was fun to be away, but it's fun to be inspired by people I wouldn't have rubbed shoulders with had it not been for that. I accidentally went to a workshop. I thought it was something else. And it turned out to be exactly where God wanted me to be, because I have like this new mission that we want to really pursue for the Real Men Conference that's coming in February. That's going to get the entire state of Iowa, well, at least 31 churches involved in prayer. It was like I was going to go to something on coaching, and I went to something on prayer rooms, which always piques my interest because we do prayer rooms. And he told some great stories. We'll talk about this on another edition, but and we'll talk about it at the conference, or the Real Men Conference too. But basically, I'll just lay it out. If we had 31 churches that will take one day a month to pray 24 hours, we can call Pray Iowa, and we will have 24/7 prayer potentially for years coming out of Iowa, just churches that will take one day. And that we don't care how that they do it. They don't care if they set up a prayer room like we do, or if they just text each other, hey, your turn, and we don't care. But there's some cool stories that he shared in this workshop of different cities that are doing this, and just how it breaks out revival and crazy happen, and God just shows up in neat ways. I thought, wow, we can do that. We can do that. We can find 31 churches. I'd love to do a prayer in Des Moines if we can find 31 churches in Des Moines. But we're going to have people coming from all over Iowa to the Real Men Conference. I thought, well, we'll kick it off there and see how many days we can build up, and find churches who will just say, yeah, we'll take a day. The 5th of every month, we're going to pray. That kind of gets my blood flowing, stuff like that. So that was purely by accident, and because I went to a conference. So we'll talk more about that in the future. All right, Real Men Iowa, we are back. We'll see you next time.